Here on Kiwi, 12 minutes past 9.
Live from the New Scientist Labs, it's Janine Young with Wammo on Kiwi.
Janine Young joining us from the New Scientist Laboratory of her living room in Melbourne City, where it's 28 degrees. Janine, good morning.
Good morning, Wammo.
Oh, that's criminal. 28 degrees. It shouldn't be. Not at this time in the morning.
No, believe me, it's all hot and I'm not feeling very comfortable. I've had a shower, but I swear that I really haven't. It's not pleasant at all.
Yeah. Well, it is the season, and we'll only be grumbling when it's cold once again, of course. So
yeah, but we reserve the right to do so.
This is true. Let's talk about, first of all, something that we all take for granted. And when I saw the story pop up on our list, I was quite fascinated by this. Oxygen, and where oxygen even came from in the first place, and when it first appeared on Earth.
Oxygen is one of those things that is everywhere. We take it for granted. It's in reasonably high levels in the environment. Plants need it to be able to deal with the carbon dioxide that they're picking up. We need it to be able to generate energy. Basically, you need it for any kind of life on Earth. But for a long time, people weren't sure where it came from. The original theory was that cyanobacteria, the kind of blue bacteria, came along, started generating oxygen, and then it shot up in the environment, and lo and behold, life followed. There's been a little bit of doubt around that, shall we say. And the theory now is that it in fact wasn't the cyanobacteria, because around about 2.4 billion years ago, there was a thing called the Great Oxygenation Event. There was a burst of oxygen released into the atmosphere, and it generated a massive, massive amount of oxygen that then induced life after it. Then, because all that actually got used, it dropped off again. There was another couple of bursts of oxygen that came along, but they were never sure quite why all this happened. Cutting to the chase, as we like to do at New Scientist, they think now that it was actually red-green algae and lichens that were responsible for the large amount of oxygen that was produced and then sustained over time. Because lichens also dissolve the rock that they're sitting on, they don't just sit there benignly, they're actually getting their nutrients from the rock that they're sitting on. They think that they produced oxygen, they're able to use these nutrients. Eventually that washed into things like rivers and the like. That then produced, or the oxygen was also able to oxidise, so help break down the rocks as well, which then produced more oxygen, and it developed into a cycle which has kept on going, so that there was more and more oxygen over time.
And thank goodness for that, because if it didn't, well, who knows what we'd be breathing, and probably wouldn't even be around.
We would be exactly like Mars. And the thing about oxygen is that it eventually generated the ozone layer. Ozone's a not terribly stable form of oxygen, but it's very, very good at high levels of stopping ultraviolet light coming to the Earth's surface. And that then means that you can actually get that protective layer so that life can actually it can flourish. And that's exactly what's happened. On Mars, on the other hand, it doesn't have that layer, which means that any water that was there, and we do know that there was water on Mars at one point, that evaporated off, and the oxygen went to oxidising the rocks, and that's what's turned them bright red. So without oxygen, we'd be Mars.
Fascinating. Well, if you've just been listening or watching to this, there's no excuse not to know where oxygen came from.
There will be a test later.
Yeah, there will be a test later. Next one, this is interesting, especially on the back of the Haiti earthquake, a pill that could save earthquake crush victims.
One of the biggest problems when people are rescued out of earthquakes is what happens afterwards. Because crush injuries, so the limbs literally being crushed under the weight of concrete beams or the like, is that once they're rescued, the muscle has been damaged, and from there it releases something called myoglobin. That goes into the kidneys, which blocks the kidneys because it can't be digested completely, and it's not really meant to be there. It's not the way it's meant to work. That then produces free radicals. The radicals destroy the membranes in the kidney, which means that they die, and eventually it leads to kidney failure. Now, I had no idea that any of this happened before I started reading about this, but good news, they've found, at least in rats, that paracetamol, just a simple Panadol tablet, might be able to save thousands of lives just by being administered. They don't quite know when, and this is the tricky bit, that can actually stop this reaction so that myoglobin's not released into the kidney. It's such a simple solution that, if it works, could save thousands of lives.
Yeah. So not only will rescue workers be armed with, high-powered drills and bulldozers, but they'll be needing to have some of these pills in their back pocket as well to give to the victims.
They have protocols at the moment about how to treat victims that are coming out of earthquake-prone areas and have been under buildings. Rapid infusion of saline is one of the things that they use. But if putting a paracetamol in with it, whether it be soluble or whatever, they haven't quite worked those protocols out. But if it's that simple, then how many lives could be saved? It's fantastic.
Isn't it useful, not just for hangovers, but for earthquake victims?
Finally, a serious use of paracetamol.
Hey, finally, this is an interesting one. How to cook to impress. Is there where does science come into this?
Oh, come on. Cooking is science. It's all chemistry. And I never thought I'd say that because I hate chemistry. Chemistry and I never got on particularly well. But if you actually want to impress someone and make them feel full afterwards and feel like they've had a fantastic meal in your house, what you need to be able to do is to incorporate more complex smells into the food that you're cooking. Now, at the moment, it's an exercise in chemicals being added to tubs of yogurt and volunteers eating it, and the ones that have the more smells in it, as opposed to just, say, one, are feeling more satisfied. They feel more full. And that's a really important component of food, because if you don't feel full, you're going to go back and eat more. And this can be a component in, you've guessed it, the development of obesity. And that's partially where this research is leading, because they're now hoping to change the texture of this yogurt to see whether or not they can actually get more satiation. It's a terrible word, but that's the actual word when you're dealing with food.
Right.
You feel more full and you feel more comfortable and happy with the food that you've eaten. So, some people still eat a lot of food even after they do have that feeling of satiation. That's a separate story. But in this case, the more chemicals that they have in this particular yogurt, that more strawberry-type smells, the better that it was for these people, because smell is so much of taste.
Yeah, I wonder if my next dinner party I should try and serve up some stinking bishop. Have you had some stinking bishop before?
I haven't.
I don't think you'd want to.
Enlighten me.
It's a cheese. It's a stinky, smelly, like it smells like the worst kind of boot, or that's worse than that. It's more like stinking body parts, to be fair.
That doesn't appeal to me. So if ever I come to dinner, I don't like blue cheeses, but every other kind of cheese I'll eat. So perhaps that's not quite what they're referring to. They might be feeling the idea that it should be actually the nice type smells that make people feel good.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Janine Young, thanks so much. Those stories you'll find in the New Scientist magazine, which is coming out next week. Here is a track from Conan Moccasin. This here is called Megumi, the Milky Way Above.
Hello, Connor.